You understand from your history classes that the Roman Empire was never defeated from without, but they overextended and they collapsed from within. Guess where we are today? You can go back and look at the Ottoman Empire, same deal. You can look at the Soviet Empire, same deal. Guess where we are today? So we spread this alarm. And you want to know the gravity of this, the seriousness of this? Understand this as the truth. For every dollar today that the federal government is spending, we're borrowing 43 cents or printing it. Think of that. Let that sober in on you. For every dollar the federal government now spends, we're borrowing 43 cents. No company could possibly do this and stay in existence. No household could possibly do this without going through bankruptcy. And neither can any country. In fact, we are worse than Greece in so many ways because we're much bigger, we're going to fall much harder if we keep going this way, and we don't have a Germany or European Union or otherwise to bail us out. So Governor Gary Johnson understands this, and he is going to submit a balanced budget to Congress in 2013. That means we will submit a budget to Congress that reduces federal spending by 43%. Now, we can't pass the budget, we understand that, and we're going to have some give and take, and whether we actually get this passed or not, we're going to do our best to go over the heads of the members of Congress and show how serious this is. But where is that going to come from? Well, first understand, anytime you have a problem, in anything, it's basically a three-step process. And the first step is, let's recognize that we have a problem. I think we're there. Do you not agree with me? The second step is, let's explain the problem. And how are we going to do this? We are going to have an audit of the entire federal government using generally accepted accounting principles. Now, any public corporation is required to do that every year, appropriately so, but it has never happened in the United States of America. And we're going to employ this on the Pentagon, on all agencies, openly disclose it. Now the Pentagon said, oh, no, not us, state secrets. Well, we're not going to give away any state secrets, but we're going to have an audit of the federal government, and including the Pentagon. And let's start with the Pentagon for a minute. Let's talk about the military. We are not, by the way, going to reduce everybody's budget by 43%. That's naive, it's counterproductive, it's stupid, and that's not what we're going to do. You have to eliminate entire programs or entire departments or entire agencies. So where will we go? Let's start with the military. And by the way, I am the only one running for president or vice president that's actually served in the military. And I believe that that's an important perspective to have. And by the way, I'll also be the first Peace Corps volunteer to be elected to national office, and I'm proud of that. I think, again, it brings a perspective. But if you look at our country today, we have our troops, military troops, fighting in conflicts all around the world. And it's continued to be perpetuated by the Republicans or the Democrats. It's been going on that way for decades. Doesn't matter, interchangeable once again. We're not isolationist under any circumstances. I believe that's naive. But we're not going to have our troops fighting unless there's a security threat to the United States. I'll ask you individually, do any of you feel that Somalia is a security threat to the United States? Let's stop that fighting and bring those troops home. How about Yemen, the Sudan? Any of you? I even read in the paper, this was about 2 or 3 months ago, in the Los Angeles Times, that President Obama was seriously considering putting our troops in Mali, for heaven's sake. How many of you believe Mali is a security threat to you? The answer is no, and that's part of the 43%. Let's talk about Afghanistan. Now, honestly, Governor Johnson and I believe we should have gone into Afghanistan when we did. It was an act of war. September 11th, 2001, that was an act of war perpetrated against us, not per se by Afghanistan, but it was by Al-Qaeda. They were harbored in Afghanistan. Basically, it was condoned by Afghanistan. We had every right to go into that place, find these people, bring them to justice, root them out, etc. Should have taken us, what, 60 days, maybe 90, 120? We've been there for 11 years, and the answer is bring our troops home now. I think that's worthy of some applause. We're the only one. Obama will keep our troops there, he says, until 2014, and who knows. We will bring them troops home now. I was flying on an airplane. I'm doing a lot of flying. I actually flew in this morning from wherever I was. I saw a full-bird colonel in the United States Air Force on a plane. And I talked to him, just making conversation, said, well, Colonel, where are you stationed? And he told me, and I don't remember where it was. And then he said, at least I'm not in Iraq or Afghanistan. I looked at him and said, Colonel, Tell me, I've not been to Afghanistan. Is what we're doing helping there? Are we making progress? He looked at me truly sadly and shook his head and said, no, anything possibly that we could have accomplished, we've already accomplished. It's counterproductive for us to stay there. We should not be there. Let's bring our troops home now. Understand, Afghanistan is tribal. They have all of these various tribes, and it's been compounded, of course, because a lot of them now are drug lords because of the opium poppy and the heroin, etc. But they don't get along with each other. That's probably the nicest thing you say. They hate each other. They've never had a central government in Afghanistan. They don't want a central government. They want to basically have these various areas that will be able to, in effect, run their lives like they want to. The only thing that unifies the tribes in Afghanistan is what? When a foreign invader comes in and occupies the land. You can talk to Napoleon if you want to. It doesn't work. The British, it doesn't work. It was really the beginning of the end of the Soviet Union. It doesn't work. And guess who the invader is today? The answer is no. That's part of our 43%. We spent $1 trillion there, for heaven's sake. We're trying to rebuild nations half a world away. It doesn't work. They don't appreciate it. They bomb it anyway. Let's start rebuilding our country. Let's spend our money on our resources. In addition, I mean, 43% is a lot, and I understand that. But today, do you know that the United States of America has bases, military bases or reservations, something on the order of 900 to 1,000 bases in foreign countries today around the world? Now look, again, if they're necessary for our security, terrific. Keep them there. Reinforce them as far as that's concerned. But I'll bet you that we could close down 80% of those without even scratching our heads more than once as to whether they're necessary for our security. Close them and bring those troops home. Let's spend the money instead, you know, in places in our country instead of half a world away. I read an article in a magazine a couple of months ago, and a woman was quoted. She lives in a small town in Germany next to a U.S. Army base, and she was quoted as being horrified at the idea that we would close this base and bring those troops home. She said, you know, if that were to happen, we would lose 92% of the revenue for our town. And you know something? She's probably right. Let's spend that revenue here instead.